Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hi,
Ellen,
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. A little toasty here, but I'm okay.
Aha.
well, we're starting this webinar. This is Joan Conover. I'm the president of SSCA this year. And we have been helping down in Grenada and pulled in quite a few partners who have really helped. One of them being in Grenada, and that's Lynn that you see on the screen. And then we also have Carrie Gonzalez, who's an expert on insurance and has solved some real thorny insurance issues for us over the past couple years. She actually sponsors the Cruisers University courses at the Annapolis Boat Show and some other groups, and she is a well-known speaker. And when we realized there were problems with insurance, or might be, we called her to see if she could answer some questions. And I wanted to go through this Grenada view to show you the damage in Grenada. I don't know how many people have seen that. I also have to apologize because I have a puppy squeaking a ball, and there's nothing I can do about that. If I can get this through. I want a page down on this thing. Come on. There we go. So here's the airport at Carriacou. And we have, you can see that there's a before and after. And here you can see the before and after of Parish, Grenada, widespread damage to the structures near the airport. You can see the damage. Here's Tyrol Bay. You can see the housing damage and the structures. Can you see that okay, Lynn? And Carrie,
Yep.
can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. We'll get more details. We've been trying to make water charts out of sat images. And I have to apologize for the dog. Just a moment.
People are probably hearing the tree frogs in the background from me.
Well, I'm in Florida. You probably don't hear anything here, but I've spent my day with quite a few folks on the phone in the Caribbean. So I know there are some folks in the Caribbean participating in this who will be some tremendous resources.
And I'm back on again. I apologize for that. I'm in close quarters and we have boat dogs. Puppies. 15-week-old puppies. Anyway, here is Tyrol Bay, Carriacou Parish, Grenada. If I can get this to page down again. And here is damaged structures. First, you see Carriacou, the Grenada, and you can see some of the damage to the houses. And here's some more damage to the structure before and after. But what we've been looking at is trying to see if we can see where the reef, if the reefs are changed. So when people come in to some of the harbors, they can see that or what's in the water. We're working on that. I see hopefully Danny has joined us. Thank you, Danny. So there were widespread damage to structures. The airport is damaged. Runway appears not to be damaged. Harbor damage. And then they have the copyrights and sources. So I'm going to drop the share. And then turn it over to you, Carrie. I allowed you to share the screen.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. I do have something I'm going to walk through. And contrary to our last call, Joan, I think it might be a good idea to record this call. Do you have that ability?
Yes, let me record.
Perfect. So I'm giving you permission to record this. And hopefully that'll mean that more people have access to this information later, especially the contact information.
Right. Now, also for those on this webinar, if you have questions, there's actually a question and answer button. You can ask questions and we'll answer that. And if you want to chat, you're able to chat directly to the panelists or each other. So hopefully you'll be able to get the information out. We are growing. We have growing from 20, and we are actually running live with YouTube. So I'll turn that over to you, Carrie.
Perfect. So let me just move a couple things around here. And I apologize, I do have a little bit of a cold, as some of the people who've contributed to this know. But I am going to go about this with a little more formality than I did the last time. First of all, I would like to just express my sincere heartache for the people that are in the Caribbean. We have customers there. We have some that have damage. We have some that don't have damage. And just so everyone knows, this is not a sales pitch. This is a consumer service to help people who are having trouble with their insurance, whether you are Canadian or American, or you just need some insight. So I'm a dual citizen of Canada and the US. I'm going to try to touch on both. So here we go. 1 second here. Sorry. Okay, first I have to cover, we have a little bit of a delay here, so I apologize. I do want to make it clear that even though I've been an agent for 35 years, I am not an attorney. This is not to be construed as legal advice. I'm not going to read this because Joan will make the recording available afterward. But if you do need an attorney, first of all, the Caribbean is really not a litigious society. It's filled with very kind people and good Samaritans and a tremendous network. And although I realize that there are some opportunists that I'm going to talk about who take advantage of situations like this, for the most part, I think there is definitely a place for networking and sharing of information. So to be really honest, I'm taking a little bit of a risk in doing this webinar. I'm going to put some information out there that other agents have probably steered clear of. It's very hard to take the position that I'm taking and make sure that people are looking at public accessible information. And that's what I'm going to try to encourage everyone to do. So here's the audience we're looking at today, at least that I'm hoping we're looking at. People that have a claim against a third party. So Lynn, if you had a boat that hit my boat and it was your fault, or it was basically nature's fault, the fault of your boat, I'm going to have a claim with you and your insurance company. That would be number one. Then we have people who are properly insured with a financially viable, financially accountable, and verifiable provider that is licensed and that has a solid public reputation. People who insure with these properly insured providers act as though they do not have insurance, and that's where the payments are so reliable. We're going to talk about that. Then we have the category of people who are coming to the webinar because they purchased insurance from the Wild West. And they can't rely on their insurance. Maybe you have a declination or rejection on your insurance. Maybe you can't get answers. Maybe you have a phone number for your insurance provider and you can't even get through to the phone number. They're only taking voicemails. And then the last category here that we're going to cover is people who are attending, who are self-insured, who just want to know, how can we help? So first of all, I'm going to talk about what you need to collect if you are filing a claim. We all know if you're in the Caribbean, this is going to be a long process. So this gives you a checklist, and Joan's going to share this after the call. But this list, hey Joan, we've got some interference. Do you know where it's coming from?
Someone, Lynn, do you want to mute?
Just for a moment.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Might be my
I
tree
think
frog.
that's it. just mute for a second.
Maybe, thank you. But this is a document checklist of things that you need to collect as you're getting ready to file your claim. This might be something you've already seen. It might be something that trickles down to you, every week you get one more thing from the insurance company that they're asking for. But this is a full list of everything you're going to need to compile. So if you're in line waiting to get an answer from your insurance provider, you can start collecting these things now. So when the adjuster and yourself start to talk, you're ready with all the documentation. So the first list I'm going to cover here is the list of all the documents that form a warranty or a guarantee to your contract for insurance. Now, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that before, but marine insurance is a two-sided contract. And all of these things determine, will I get paid or will I not get paid? So you're going to need your insurance policy, and you're going to want all these in electronic form. You're going to need your most recent survey. Maybe you don't have it on file. Maybe it was a paper copy. You'll have to contact the surveyor that surveyed it a year ago and get a copy. You will need your formal rigging inspection. Now, if you didn't have one, or if you have a power boat, just ignore this part. But if you had one, please dig it up. You will need records illustrating that you complied with your survey recommendations. Now, if you have a new boat and it's, less than 5 years old, you probably didn't have to have a survey. If that was the case, you won't have to pull that together. But for the most part, people will be looking at pulling the survey and the recommendations from the survey that they had that was last on file. I often get asked, what about priority list A, B, and C? What if I only did priority list A on my survey recommendations? The underwriters all from every market now require that all survey recommendations be complied with. So make sure you are in the process, if you have a claim, of compiling proof that you complied with all those survey recommendations. I'm sure we're going to get questions on that. Make sure you have a copy of your signed application. So the signed application is basically all the representations and the warranties you made to the insurance company. So if you said you were going to be in Tyrrell Bay and you were somewhere else during the storm, that application would have stated that. You're going to pull together the absentee warranty plan or the questionnaire, and that only applies to people who had to fill one of these out because they were not with their vessel or they were leaving it for an extended period of time. If there are questions on that particular requirement or paperwork, they will vary by insurance provider. So we can circle back to that based on who your provider was, and I'll answer them on a more specific basis. You'll want to pull together the captain or crew operator questionnaires. Now, in the Caribbean, a lot of the insurance providers base insurance coverage on a named operator policy. So if you have one of those policies, you're going to want to pull together those questionnaires. If you had someone other than the named operator operating at the time of the loss, then hopefully you've listed it on this next document, which is the storm and hurricane plan. I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence. Most of these things are pretty well known in the industry, but what's not known that I want to point out very specifically is that the things that have asterisks form warranties to the coverage. So if there were changes in those things, including your mailing address or anything else, all those things form a warranty to the policy. They need to be updated before you file the claim. Okay, so going on, after you have figured out where you're going to verify your coverage, where the insurance company and the agent will verify your coverage, here's a document checklist of what you'll need throughout the process of the claim. So I want to simplify it. When we look at claims in insurance, we look at the who, what, where, how, and when. I did that in a reverse order. Sorry about that. But just as an example, we look at who was on board, who was operating, who witnessed what happened, And we'll need all the contact information for all those people, including yourself. If you were in a boatyard or marina, you'll want to include contact information for whoever the contact person is at that facility. You will want a timeline of what happened in sequential order. So the boat hit my mast toppled over, hit this. You want to do it in sequential order. You're going to put all that in writing. You'll want to explain how it happened. That how needs to include a description of how you secured the vessel prior to the storm. Think about this. We have a desk underwriter sitting in an office who needs to be given a visual of what your boat looked like before the storm came in. You're going to articulate that. You're going to tell a story. Here's how many lines I used, how many fenders, if I was anchored out, here's the types of anchors, where I anchored, how I anchored, what the nearest proximity to the nearest boat and dock and mangrove was. You're going to spell out every detail you can. You are going to reference your formal storm plan when you do this. That formal storm plan will be a checklist to articulate that you performed all the due diligence that you promised in the beginning. Then we're going to move on to the where. So this is all going in your statement of loss. And you can start this even before the insurance company asks for it. So the where will include where did it happen? The location name, the longitude and latitude. So if you're secured in a mangrove, you're going to say, okay, I was, quarter mile from shore. This is the nearest point on shore. Here's the long and lat. And if you move your vessel after it was damaged to secure it, you need to say where you moved it to in that statement of loss. You need to say where your crew, where your caretaker was, where your captain was, and where you were. Talk about the when. Don't put in a statement of loss that this happened during Hurricane Beryl. They want to know, when was the last time you saw your vessel? This is your proof of life statement, okay? When was the last time you saw it? What did you see? When did you return? Give the date and the time. And if it wasn't you, was it a caretaker? Was it someone at the dock? Did they send you a picture to give you that proof of life? You want to collect your witness statements. They're going to be separate from your statement of loss. You're going to start collecting electronic maintenance receipts. So if you have like a folder with all your papers in it, you're going to have to start scanning them. And if you have an iPhone, there's a scanning app on your iPhone that's free you can use. Feel free to reach out to me afterward. I'm happy to give a 30-second lesson. It's that easy. But there's an iPhone app where you can scan your receipts and get them quite easily. You can get a 100-page document off to an adjuster with all your electronic receipts. You're going to scan your maintenance log. So if you have a book and you have all your maintenance log saying, okay, I inspected I did my rigging inspection on March 31st of 2022, March 22nd, 2023. And you have all of that, even if you did it yourself, get your notes scanned in and get that in an electronic format. You're going to also need, this is where people fall short and delay a claim. You're going to need paid receipts, not just invoices. So if the yard gives you an invoice and you pay it with your credit card, if they don't give you a paid receipt, you're going to need your credit card statement. And you're going to need invoices that articulate the breakdown of all the charges and a paid receipt that corresponds with that for the towing, hurricane haul out. We're going to get back to the hurricane haul out portion of it. For yacht management or a hired captain. So a hired captain will just be if you hired someone to move your boat out of harm's way or to secure the vessel because of the hurricane. You're going to get invoices and paid receipts for a surveyor, for repairs, and for any other vendors you use. So again, if you don't have a paid receipt, which a lot of facilities and vendors don't give you, make sure you have a corresponding financial statement. Even if you redact it and you don't show the other transactions, you have to show them that you actually paid those things. Most policies in the Caribbean are based on a reimbursement basis only. So if you are one of the few people who have an insurance company in the Caribbean that is going to pay up front, hang on tight and be thankful, because that's not the norm in the Caribbean. So as you're paying these things, remember that unless you are preventing or mitigating further damages, you cannot make a claim on anything without pre-approval of all expenses in writing from the adjuster. So I'm on the phone, I call the adjuster and I say, hey, I'm going to call Bill, have him come out and survey this. Can you approve that? I get a verbal. Make sure if you get a verbal, you are backing that up in writing to the adjuster just to confirm you approve the cost of the surveyor to come out and assess the damages or the haul out or whatever the expense is. Get it in writing. If you don't get it in writing and you're doing it over the phone because you don't have email access, confirm it later in writing. Okay, with a total constructive loss, that means, you're going to end up writing off your vessel. A deductible may or may not apply, so be careful about working out money if you think it's going to be a total loss, because you may not end up having a deductible. You may be required to sign over the title. I often get asked, can I buy the vessel back? Okay, let me pause for a second here. I have helped to negotiate buying salvaged or totaled vessels back after a claim has been made on it. Let me tell you, if you go this route, you will likely not be able to insure that vessel again. So think about the implications, think about whether or not you need insurance. And this is not a sales pitch, because if anyone was on this call that I helped with a claim, you can't be a client. It's conflict of interest for us. This is simply put out there as a consumer service. So if you think about this, if you buy your vessel back and you can't insure it, you have to be able to plan where you're going to go with that vessel in the future where you won't need insurance. So if you have a loss, whether it's a partial loss or total constructive loss, you have to declare that on all future insurance applications. In every jurisdiction, everywhere in the world, failure to disclose a loss is often viewed as a crime. There are different levels of it, but any kind of material misrepresentation of fact, including not declaring a loss, can lead to action against you. So, document checklist for a hurricane haul-out claim. There's a little bit of good news in this. For those of you who hauled your vessel out for the hurricane Beryl, and you didn't plan on a hurricane haul out initially. So you didn't plan it at the beginning of the year, but you saw, oh, shoot, it's coming my way. And you were in one of the unexpected places it would go. You hauled out to move it out of harm's way, or you hired a captain. Let me tell you, a lot of insurance policies have an allowance built in that's in the fine print that says, look, if this was something you didn't expect and it wasn't in your storm plan and you need to move your vessel out of harm's way, we're going to give you an allowance. Some policies are worded that they give you an allowance by the foot up to a maximum dollar amount. It's not a ton of money. It might be a $500 allowance, might be $1,000. It all varies. Or it might be a flat dollar amount per haul out up to the maximum per policy. So if there are 2 storms and they pay $500 per haul out and the maximum is $1,000, you maxed it out. The advantage of this is that, first of all, this is often doesn't impact your insurance in the future. It doesn't have a deductible. So if this is in your policy, take advantage of it. If you don't know if it's in your policy, my contact information will be provided within this webinar. Feel free to reach out to me afterward. Even if you have an agent, I'm happy to tell you whether or not that's a provision in your policy. Okay, here's a timeline illustration. So keep in mind as you filter this that, the purpose of this is just to help you identify bottlenecks. Sorry, moving my face around here a little bit. So, when there's a big catastrophe like Hurricane Beryl, we have issues like lack of contractors, lack of surveyors, a total compromise of infrastructure like Joan just showed us. So this is specifically to focus only on bottlenecks that actually can be controlled. So if there's only one crane barge in Grenada at present, and it's old and it's, in need of repair, then unfortunately, this timeline is not going to apply because you are still waiting in line. So apply the timeline where it makes sense, and where it doesn't make sense, you're going to have to actually just think out of the box, network with the people on this call, network with other cruisers. I'm going to give you some resources because, I get asked the question often, well, how do I know who I can trust? And Joan has heard me say many times, look, insurance is not your friend. We are not a good neighbor. You are not in good hands. Everything you learned about insurance, you need to forget it, throw it out the window, and be resources to each other. And the checklist I'm giving you of all these documents that you have to put together and the timeline, that becomes your defense. Because when you file a claim, it is your obligation to prove to the insurance company that you had these damages, that you did what every reasonable person would do in similar circumstances. That's the litmus test. What would a reasonable person do in similar circumstances? And that last of all, you complied with the contract that you signed. So here's a timeline illustration to identify bottlenecks, but don't hold to this timeline because you're in the Caribbean and things are just compromised right now. At the end of the call, we're going to talk about Hope Fleet and some ways to get involved and to help. But first thing that happens, you report a claim. So if you haven't done that already and you know there's damage, get to it. Here's the language that exists in many insurance policies. And you'll have one version of this in your insurance. You may see fine print that says you have to report your claim within a reasonable time period. Very ambiguous. Some of the policies say as soon as practical. Okay, so I didn't have internet. My Starlink's not working. I don't have any clothes. I can't find lodging. So there are more important things. There are all kinds of arguments that will stand when you get to the adjuster portion of this. Some of the wording actually has time frames. I would say that the AM Best A-rated companies pretty much have ambiguous wording in it, but know your policy and know the wording in your policy so you know when you can file a claim. Make sure that if your policy says you have to report it to this website, to this 800 number, to this person, and make sure that you've done exactly what the policy says. Now, this is not a blanket statement, but most of the time, the requirements and instructions to report a claim are towards the end of the policy. I rarely see a marine insurance policy that is less than 25, 30 pages. So just skip to the end and then start backtracking. You'll find it. If you didn't get, those kinds of pages or all the forms, you are already working at a disadvantage. Reach out to me. I might be able to help with some of the forms if you can't reach your agent. But, my first suspicion would be if you didn't get the full policy, maybe you're in one of those other categories and you didn't buy, proper insurance. Okay, moving on. Within 72 hours of reporting your claim, you should have an acknowledgement of your claim. It's not going to have any commitments in it. It's not going to have anything except for we received your claim and you might get a claim number assigned. Within a week, you might have an adjuster assigned. Now, you're in the Caribbean. You might have a desk adjuster, you might have a field adjuster, and you might have a surveyor. They are not the same person. And sometimes they're subcontracted. They don't work for the insurance company. So that person may also change over time. Be patient. If you haven't already provided your sworn statement of loss, which I talked about earlier, It's an affidavit. You'll be asked for it then. Sometimes insurance providers want to see a notarized sworn statement. While you're waiting for this whole process, what do? Well, if your vessel has had moisture in it, make sure that you mitigate any damages. You seal everything up. If you need to move it to prevent damage from another boat, move it. It's your responsibility, it's spelled out in the contract, to mitigate and prevent any other damages. So while you're waiting, if you have a relationship with a surveyor or a marine facility, contact them, find out their availability, find out if they can haul your vessel out, make sure all their equipment's working, and that they're fully staffed and they're ready for you, so that when this starts to flow, you're ready. Again, be patient. If you had a surveyor in the Caribbean especially, who worked on your boat previously, get first in line, because if they have history on your boat, you want them to be the ones that works with your adjuster to report their findings. Let me tell you, the surveyors on claims, especially in hurricane claims, the surveyors are like God to the adjusters. The surveyors are the ones who go to the adjusters, whether the desk or the field adjuster. The surveyor is the one who determines, hey, this person actually complied with their storm plan. They actually did all these things before the storm, and I have evidence of it. And here's what happened, and here's the damages. And so the surveyor writes all that up in a report of findings. And you know what? I hate to tell you, but I'm the bearer of all news here, good or bad. You may not get a report of findings from the surveyor. A lot of times it goes directly to the insurance company, especially if the surveyor believes that you maybe didn't comply with your storm plan. So if you have a relationship with a surveyor already, reach out to them, get that locked in right away. When you get that survey lined up, you're going to make sure you have approval for all repairs other than mitigating your damages. Remember, again, vendors are limited, so collaborate with the adjuster. I'm going to give you some resources near the end here. Collaborate with local marine facilities and the surveyors to share information related to resources. So in catastrophic areas like this, vendors come in from the outside. I'm telling you in advance, do not trust everyone. I'm a glass half empty person. I've already told you, don't trust your insurance. Go back and read it. Read the fine print. Don't trust anyone. So what I want you to do is do your homework, do your research, network with the experts and with other cruisers, and compare the expert notes with the cruiser notes. They will bring awareness to who is being opportunistic and who is trustworthy, that's coming in from the outside. So sometimes during these scenarios when, salvage companies know that, hey, there are 25 boats in this area that need salvage assistance, all of a sudden you'll find out that they're sending a barge or they're sending a crane from outside the area. So just continue to network. Be patient. Remember, some boats are tangled with others. You may have a boat situation that is, and you're properly insured, but maybe you're tangled with a boat that is not insured, or that's insured with a company that won't allow that person to touch their boat first. Be patient. This is a time for diplomacy. And insurance can't solve that. So while you're waiting here, though, let's look back for a second at the contract of insurance. If you have to move your boat, or your scenario changes, like maybe your itinerary changes, and you are going to be stuck there for 3 months, and you said you were going to be somewhere else, make sure that you get approval in writing of that change and that you revise your storm plan, because you may have a second claim in the next storm, and that second claim will not be paid if you did not get approval for your new location. So don't assume that just because it was damaged and you moved it to a specific location, or you got a different captain, or you have a different itinerary, different timeline, don't assume that you have approval. Underwriting and claims do not talk to each other. And even if you just report it, you can never assume that it's approved. Make sure you have the approval in writing. Okay, can't say this enough. I know you're all full of money. You're in the Caribbean, right? You're living the life. Can't say this enough. I don't care how much money you have. Do not prepay any contractors or vendors in full. Now, if you're trying to secure your vessel to prevent further damage, of course, that would be the exception. But if you are going to pay for anything, get approval from the adjuster. And even after you have the approval, make sure that you are holding something back as hostage, because you don't want to cough up all your money to the only person in the area who can do that particular repair. They run off with your money and they make someone else a priority. And even if they are honest, they might make you wait for another 6 months because they already have your money. Do not prepay for everything, even if it's approved by the adjuster. All right. We're all full of good news here. I'm talking about bottlenecks. So here's another good thing that people need to be aware of. So let's say everything has happened according to plan. You have become the documentation wizard. You've done all these things. You've gone through this checklist. You've pulled all the details together in writing. You've articulated everything. And now we're at the point where the cause of loss has been determined. The surveyor has inspected, and all the amounts and the demands are determined to finalize the claim. At this point in time, and only at this point in time, the insurance adjuster will decide, are we going to pay the claim or will we deny it? So here's your red flag. If you had your claim denied at first glance within 24 hours without stating any reasons or any section of your policy, then you should be appealing this. And if you need some specific advice on how to do that, I can help with that. If they are denying your claim, and they have a right to deny your claim, so I'm going to give you an example. So claims are denied because you said you were going to have 10 lines and 8 fenders, and you only had 4. Claims are denied. I'm giving you ridiculous examples too, just so you understand the absurdity of our industry, because sometimes it is. But claims are denied because you said you were going to be at a floating dock and you moved to a fixed dock. A claim can be denied because you said you would have a caretaker check on your boat 72 hours after Hurricane Beryl passed. You know what? You couldn't reach your caretaker. All the internet systems and telephones were down. There was no Starlink. You couldn't reach him. Guess what? You just voided your coverage. The fact that you couldn't reach him is an inexcusable reason for not having your caretaker check on your vessel within 72 hours, if that was built into your storm plan as a promise to the underwriters. So make sure that you know what your responsibilities were. So when this all happens and they determine whether they're going to pay the claim or not pay the claim, if they're not paying the claim, an insurance provider must send a reservation of rights notice. It is a formal legal notice, and it has to follow the regulations in the jurisdiction that's stated on the policy. In most jurisdictions, this notice has to be sent within 30 days of the demand or the determination of the claim. If you have had a claim denial already and you haven't gone through this process, or you didn't get a reservation of rights letter, maybe we can talk about that and what your rights might be. Now, remember, I'm not an attorney. This is not legal advice. The only thing I can do is point you to the rights in your policy and how you are able to appeal them. And every single policy is different. At the end of your repairs, what you're going to do is you're going to consult with your adjuster. You're going to ask the adjuster, do I need an updated survey? Sometimes they want to see that to determine that all repairs are in fact complete. If they do settle the claim, you'll have to sign a waiver release form for the insurance provider before they make the payment. If there's a total constructive loss, you will have to sign over a title and a bill of sale. Payment will only be This is really important, okay? Payment will only be made in the name of the party listed as the named insured. So if you have an LLC in your boat and your LLC is registered to a Green Cove Springs address, I'm really sorry, but that claim check will likely be made out to the LLC company name, and it will be mailed to the Green Cove Springs address. It will not be sent to wherever you're lodging in the Caribbean or anywhere else. And I'm sure we're gonna have some questions on that. Okay, I get asked this question often. I've been asked this question at least a dozen times this week already. Should I pay my premiums? I had a claim. Should I keep paying? And if your claim has not been settled in full or denied in full with your acceptance of that, pay your premiums, because failure to pay your premiums constitutes a breach of contract, of your insurance contract. Okay, this is where it gets a little tough. And this is where I start to squirm that we are recording this. And Joan knows exactly where I'm going with this. But there is a provider that has written a lot of insurance in the Caribbean that some surveyors don't work with, that Safe Harbor Marinas doesn't want to have vessels pulling into their facilities. But this particular provider has received a lot of attention recently. And I have had phone calls and emails from SSCA members and others related to claim disputes with this provider. The provider name is Edward Williams. And as you all know, I'm not giving legal advice, not an attorney, but I'm just going to share some public information and some things in their forms that constitutes your rights or lack of them in their forms. So without further ado, this is what they're famous for. This is an exclusion, by the way, the resulting direct physical loss to the insured yacht for dismasting unless a professional rig inspection was completed within the last 2 years and any deficiencies that were identified with the standing rigging or chain plates were remedied as recommended and the work was completed by a professional rigger. So this gets a little ugly because a lot of times this insurance is offered without a requirement for a professional rig inspection. So the argument is always, well, it wasn't required of me. The problem with this insurer that I'm going to talk about in a little bit is, okay, it's fine that you disagree with that, but this particular provider is not regulated and you have no way to appeal this because this is a contract you accepted and this wording was provided to you at the beginning of the policy term. Here's another exclusion. Where coverage is subject to a survey or mast rigging report, this must be no older than 5 years with a fresh up-to-date survey or mast rigging report due by the next renewal. It's in the fine print. How do I know that I have to provide this for the next renewal? So it renews year 2, year 3. I'm not reading the fine print from 3 years ago, and I'm in the business. By the way, I don't sell with this provider. Here's another exclusion. This is a general exclusion that applies to the whole policy. And this is just from the last few months. And there's only a few of them. But this exclusion says that you are not covered for any claim arising while the vessel is outside the navigational limits shown in the schedule of insurance, unless required to safeguard the vessel, you or your guests, from any storm or flooding above 4.6 on the Beaufort scale, unless agreed to us and shown on your policy schedule. So, a lot of people just put their navigation on the application and then they put their itinerary, and they provide their storm plan. They don't even think about the Beaufort scale. I've been doing this 35 years. I don't ever talk to my customers about whether or not their storm plan has factored in the Beaufort scale. Take a look at the Beaufort scale just as a refresher when you get time to see, okay, if I had Edward Williams insurance, was I in compliance with the Beaufort scale wording? By the way, Edward Williams is not an insurance company. It's a broker name. The insurance company that backs it right now is Ion. And there's more than one Ion Insurance, but they all heard of the same family. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so along the lines of this Edward William, you know, my job as an agent is to be a messenger, to be an advocate. Just like Edward William, I do not write claim checks. I don't have that authority. I do not have the bank of God. I do not approve repairs or expenses. I don't say whether something's covered or not. I'm not an adjuster. So just like me, Edward Williams can't say that either. Now, Concept is also a program name that is very reputable that writes a lot of insurance in the Caribbean. And they recently changed their financial backing. They have like a pie where 7 players participate in a percentage of the loss. And they are managing the program. So Concept works a little bit differently. Their name may be on the check, or they may need to get approval from these providers depending on the amount of the loss. Okay, so again, don't stop paying your premium. If your claim was denied and you're planning on appealing your claim, don't stop paying your premium because it immediately invalidates your appeal. So I know there are Canadians, Lynn, not to pick on the Canadians. I'm a dual citizen, but I am a agent and own an agency in the United States. Not to pick on the Canadians, but I want to touch on that for a second, because in Canada, the process for appealing a claim is quite different. They're not as litigious. Canada frowns a little more on frivolous lawsuits. So Canada has instituted this thing in insurance policies whereby they appoint an ombudsman. Sorry, I have a cold, so it's hard to say. But they appoint a person at each insurance provider who is to be the caveat, basically the go-between between the insurance provider and the underwriters and you. And you have to go through the ombudsman process to appeal your claim. Your policy will specifically spell that out based on who your provider is. Now, in the US, if you have a claim and you are domiciled in Idaho, you're going to have a different process than if you're domiciled in Florida. It all goes back to where you claim your state of residency, your domicile, okay? So just because you're in the Caribbean, it doesn't necessarily mean that your appeal process will be determined by the Caribbean. Now, if you're with an unreputable insurance company, your appeal process may be quite different. And we'll talk about whether or not it's worth spending time on that or on other things. But if you're in the US, there's an appeal process through the insurance commissioner by state. It's called the Consumer Complaint section of the insurance department website. Each state has different requirements. If you need help with your claim and you don't know how to go about this, before you contact a public adjuster, let's have a chat about this, because I'm sure money's not flowing during this time. Public adjuster is someone who basically does this for you. They step into your claim and they say, hey, I can go to your insurance company and Lynn, I can settle your insurance company for $10,000 higher, and I can get it settled in 30 days. And maybe they have the connections to do that. But you know what, Lynn? They're going to take, sorry to pick on you, but they're going to take 8 to 12% of your claim costs and put it in their pocket. So before you spend money on that, make sure you know how or if you can appeal your own claim. Okay, what do we do in this world where we can't trust anybody? Like I told you, insurance is not your friend. We're not a good neighbor. You're not in good hands. I know people get tired of me saying it, but the problem here is that, it's not just the insurance company. You're letting the insurance providers take advantage of you because you don't read anything that they send you. So read the fine print. Do your own research. So we talked on this call about Edward Williams. We talked about their financial backing being with Ion Insurance. Look up Ion Insurance. pull up their financials. You know what? They're online. They're 2 years old, almost 2 years, but they're online. You can pull them up. You can draw your own conclusion. Can they pay my claim? Can they pay a claim for 10 boats, 50 boats, 100 boats? Look at their financials. I'm not giving you my opinion. Pull it up online, do your own homework. Okay, so I always love this. You know, insurance started with trust, and it started with Lloyd's of London. And so when you get to play this back, you're going to love this whole video. I'm not going to play it right now. We're running out of time. Financial accountability. So if you're replacing your insurance, say you cancel your insurance or you're shopping for new insurance, here are the rating organizations where you can check whether or not you have a rated insurance provider. You can go to all of these websites, and Joan is going to be so kind to provide all of these for you. Here's an example. And this example is even beyond the insurance company. You can even research the agent. So I exchanged emails with 5 people today who purchased insurance from someone that we could not find an insurance license for as an agent. I'm not kidding you. So this is public accessible information. And Lynn, it exists in Canada also. So just to pick on me, I'm showing you, here's my license for Florida. It shows every company I'm appointed with, and mine goes on and on and on. But if you want to look me up in Wisconsin, if you want to look me up in DC, in Idaho, wherever you want to look me up, wherever you're domiciled, do not do business with an agent who's not licensed in your state of domicile. If you did, and your claim was denied, you can go to the insurance commissioner, report the agent for unlicensed, unlawful activity because they sold you insurance that they were not licensed to sell you. And I'm going on a big risk to say this because right now, that's the norm. Okay, you can read this later. Little background on Lloyd's and the financial stability and accountability that is cemented in it. But I want to get to this because this is probably the most important. I'm going to pick on a couple people. So I get asked, okay, who can we count on? Who can we trust? I'm not in the Caribbean. I'm in Stuart, Florida. Great place to be, by the way. I would love to be where you are. But I hear that there's challenges with supplies getting in there right now. And even being able to go buy something is really challenging. And we're going to talk in a minute about hopefully. For right now, I want to talk about some of the people, not that I trust so much, but that insurance providers I work with trust. So in preparation for this call, I contacted some of the heads of insurance providers and claims organizations and third-party administrators that I work with. And remember, I've been doing this for 35 years. So if they tell me they trust someone, I'm going to tell you to trust them. I do not know these people personally, but I will tell you, let me point out a couple people. I have spent a great deal of time with this Bill Bailey today on the phone. And he has a very, very balanced way to look at things. He only works with reputable insurance companies. He knows surveys inside out. He knows who to trust. So he'd be a good place to start. He's probably going to regret giving me permission to put his name on here. But I'm going to tell you the reason I'm pointing to Bill first. I'm sorry, Bill. I know we haven't given you an audience here, but he's on this call. The reason I'm pointing to him first is because almost every insurance claims rep and manager of an insurance provider that I contacted pointed me to Bill. Okay, so that has to tell you something. Bill got on the phone with me and I said, okay, Bill, well, what do we do when the insurance companies are requiring that, the vessel gets secured, that certain things have to happen to prevent further damages? Who can someone call? Because we can't all just fly down there and we can't reach everyone. So Bill told me, well, Mark has like 50 hours in a day, and Mark Sutton can help out with securing a vessel and yacht management. So you might start with those two people first, but there's some other resources on here. Again, that came from insurance companies and claim providers that I trust implicitly. So hopefully this helps with you. But this is also a platform to share this kind of information. So if you have someone that you would recommend, throw it in the chat and share it after the call in the comments, because I'm sure it'll benefit a lot of people. This will develop over time, and I know Bill shared with me that, when barges come in, he usually knows about them. So I'm not going to be the one to call to say, okay, where can I haul out next? Who has a crane that's working? It's not going to be me. I can help you with your insurance forms. That's about it. Okay, claim impact on new insurance. So you get through all this, at the end of the day, you're going to remember me as the scary insurance lady, as I've been termed at Cruisers University. What is this going to do to your new insurance? There are some insurance providers that say they will not cover you if you had a claim in the last year, in the last 2 years, in the last 5 years. It's a puzzle. It varies by insurance provider. So what are you going to do? You might have to change your navigation. You might have to change your plans. You might have to take a higher deductible. You might have to, actually declare the claim that happened. But whatever you do, make sure you disclose it. Back to my legal disclaimer, because I put a lot out here that is pretty risky. I will tell you that almost every one of my competitors is selling insurance that is possibly not regulated, where they may not be licensed to do so. And I leave a lot of business and say I can't do it, because if I can't find a fit with a reputable player, we just don't do it. Here's my contact information. And then what I want to do is just spend a minute while this is up talking about Hope Fleet. So, and what my role is. Joan, I can't seem to move the faces. So, we're in business to give back. And if we help on a claim, I told you already, look, it's a conflict of interest for us if we help on a claim to work on your insurance. So that being said, if you need help, certainly by all means, reach out to me. I am only on WhatsApp when I plan to be. We have 5 kids and 9 grandkids. So I'm not going to be on WhatsApp all the time. If you need me on WhatsApp, send me an email. I'll get on when you tell me to. Okay. You can find us on Facebook too, but I don't always answer Facebook messages. WhatsApp is great. Phone is great. My cell phone is the WhatsApp number. So you can reach me that way too. I do work London hours, so the best time to reach me is really early in the morning. I get messages from Joan at 5:30. No kidding. But we're in business to give back. And so if you are on this call just because you're curious or because you're an industry resource, I want to challenge you to take that same posture. Joan, do we have a moment to give Danny the mic and let him speak for a minute so that he can talk a little bit about Hope Fleet? And while we're answering that question, I want to tell you, we do a lot of things to try to showcase Hope Fleet. Hope Fleet tries to link boaters and supplies to disaster-struck areas so that we can solve each other's problems. So, Joan, are you still there?
Yes, Carrie, I have a couple questions, so let's
Okay.
recognize Danny at Hope Fleet. Danny, are you available to talk? I don't know if he expected it.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Oh, wonderful. I'm so excited.
And Danny, I want to thank you for the hard work that you're doing right now. I can see the boats that are signing up with you. We know the boats are moving because we're shoving, right now, mosquito netting on a boat in Margot, thanks to International Rescue Group, Great Factory, finding a big cat, sending it to Margot to load out from St. Lucia to go to Union Island. But Trinidad sending stuff, you're tracking all of that, and it's appreciated. I'll turn it over to you, Danny.
Yeah, no, it's really awesome to see the cruising community, and they always come together, and especially in times like this, and they give back, and there's so much passion and charitable hearts. And a lot of what we do is just try to support that and organize that to take some of the pressure off of cruisers who are trying to help. For instance, there's actually a vessel now was having issues bringing supplies into St. Vincent, and but sometimes if you're just a boat that's coming with a lot of supplies, people, they don't know who you are, where these supplies are going, and it's hard for the government, especially during times like this. They're not always the bad guy, the government. There's a lot going on, and so they may ask, where are these supplies going? Where are you coming from? But if you can join with a nonprofit, so essentially what we do is provide some support to these cruisers by providing a manifest and saying, hey, this vessel is signed up with us. We are a nonprofit organization and we are helping in these areas. Here's a list of supplies. If you need to contact us, do so here. And actually, this one vessel that just cleared in was having issues. They said, where's your manifest? And we did make him a manifest, and then he was able to clear in. But it's just simple things sometimes, but it makes a big difference. So we take time to vet partners on the ground, and we have a lot of good relationships with other nonprofit organizations, so we know who's committing to what and where the help is really needed. Now, in times right after a hurricane like this, sometimes the best you can hope for is controlled chaos. And I know Joan and I have been talking about this a lot, but the cruisers really jump right in, and a huge big thank you to all of the cruisers that took it upon themselves to sacrifice the time, and a lot of them purchasing supplies with their own funds and doing this. So we're here. We are continuing to develop programs, not just a short-term immediate response, but we have some partners that we think we can plug cruisers into to volunteer as well, because there's so many skills in the collective boating community. And so we just try to best match them with the way that they can help.
Danny, thank you. If anyone's interested, it's hopefully1word.org. And you can see what they're doing. You can also go to news site and see what's going on. You can go to Doyle Guides and see what's going on. We're all partnering together and trying to work together. We have a question. We have one question in the question and answers. And then, Lynn, I think you have some questions, don't you? Anyway, here's a question from Peter Williams, and this is for Carrie. What happens if your insurers are refusing to agree or have not assigned an adjuster, and as the argument rolls on, you want to buy new parts?
As the argument moves on, I
You
didn't
want to
catch
buy
that.
new parts. In other words, something's delayed. What happens if your insurers are refusing to agree or who have not assigned an adjuster, and as the argument rolls on, you want to buy new parts?
You want to buy
New parts, like
new parts. Okay. Sorry, I work in black and white. If the new parts are to prevent or mitigate further damages, you will likely get approval to get them paid if the claim gets paid. However, if you take that risk, you not only risk not having those new parts paid for, but you also risk having the claim denied because you took action that wasn't approved by the adjuster. Now, remember, I said, when I brought up that timeline, I said, this is just a guideline, a framework, if you will, because during catastrophes, you have to think outside the box, you have to be patient, and you really have to exercise diplomacy, including with the adjusters. Now, if you're with an unreputable insurance company and we discuss that, and it's clear that no matter what you do, your claim's going to get denied, maybe you don't want to waste your time on that. Does that help?
Yeah, and I was going to ask Peter if he wanted to talk, because anyone who's on this list here can ask a question and we can recognize them to talk. So
Okay.
Peter, if you're interested in talking, please send a chat to the panelists and stuff, and I'll recognize you. I can turn it on so you can talk. We have another
Okay, and
question from.
yeah, I
Anon-
just saw the other question.
Yeah.
Let me read it here. What do you do if your boat was anchored? It didn't get damaged by Beryl itself, but it got damaged a lot from another boat that was dragging. Can you make a claim on their insurance? So, you know, the thing I love about SSCA is you're all great neighbors. And, you know, if I had a boat and I told Joan I'm coming into Grenada and Lynn was there, Lynn would be my best friend and show me around and and tell me everyone else who's anchored there, right, Lynn? The problem is, you know, it goes back to relationships. Did you get contact information? Just like, you know, it's like car insurance. If I have a car insurance accident, you know, we all know I'm going to exchange driver information with that other person and I'm going to take pictures. You know, and unfortunately, you know, in the Caribbean, you're not going to see a legal situation happen as much as you're going to see diplomacy and good neighboring. So if your boat was anchored and damaged by someone else, your best success is going to be diplomacy and trying to get that other person to agree to file a claim with their insurance.
Okay. Of the people asking questions that are not anonymous, I will allow them to talk if they would like to.
Okay.
We have another question. Oh, no. Anyway.
Okay, I have a surveyor.
Yeah.
I have a surveyor assigned, and I'm unable to determine whether they have recognized credentials. Should we be concerned? You know, in the United States, we recognize NAMs and SAM surveyors. In the Caribbean, not so much. It's not really implemented during the life of a claim. So the main thing is making sure that whoever the surveyor is assigned is approved by the adjuster.
So does that mean that even if they aren't credentialed, that they're still suitable? If the insurance company says that's the surveyor, then that's approved?
Yeah, if you know, it's wrong question to ask me if it's suitable. It's really up to the adjuster. The adjuster has all authority on the surveyor that's assigned, whether they're suitable, qualified, or not. It's the adjuster's decision.
So,
I didn't promise I'd give you the answers you would like. I'm just giving you the answers.
okay, we don't look for the 3 questions. Lynn, do you have some questions?
Honestly, I can't say that I do, but I'm curious as to who Michael's surveyor might be. Because there's 1 or 2 surveyors in this area who weren't mentioned on Carrie's list, who are actually accredited people. But certainly I go with everybody that Carrie has on her list. I know all of them, or their reputations, they've all been fantastic. So not knowing who Michael's surveyor is that they gave him, I'd be curious to know, but I can ask him on Facebook if necessary.
Yeah, but Lynn, whether they're accredited or not, the surveyor has to be approved by the insurance adjuster because it has to be a subjective opinion. I'm kidding.
Now,
I was just curious because there's a couple around that aren't on that list, and there are some good people here still that aren't mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, we will, because everyone who's, at least the ones that are registered, not the ones listening live, but the ones that are registered, we will have this presentation that we will email to you this next week. So you can take a copy of it and you'll have that, or reach out to our office at ssca.org and she can help you as well. I did want to ask, and I know that there was talk of some damage in marinas and whatnot. Do you have anything to talk that you want to share about that, or any questions you had on insurance coverage in those cases?
I honestly can't speak to what I know about what happened in the marinas, but I think anything that's come up everything would have been covered already in the seminar anyway, because it's whether you're tied in the mangroves, on the hard, or in the marina, it still comes down to, does it go by your hurricane questionnaire and everything else? So I actually don't have questions regarding that.
Well, does anyone else have any questions? I'm hoping, Carrie, I want to thank you. This is an excellent presentation, and I would like to recognize our Seven Seas Cruising Association Vice President, Frank Smith, who
Thank you, Frank.
and Frank is listening. He just got off of work. I think you're doing you're working with your dog Recon, right?
Right.
And you might share what you're doing, but he's also a circumnavigator. He has a great big cat, and I'm sure this insurance presentation was good for you.
Well, it was
Yeah,
excellent, Carrie. I stand in awe of the breadth of your knowledge of this. Thank you very much for going through all of this with us. I don't have any questions at this time, but now that Carrie's made the mistake of giving me her phone number, I reserve the right to call her. So,
Yeah, and in full disclaimer here, you know, if I engage to help on a claim, number one, I don't charge for it, so just be considerate. It's better for me to schedule that time. I'll tell you that on average, it takes me 5 to 10 hours to work with someone to figure out next steps if they're appealing a claim. And I do that as a public service. And if you want to give back because you're just so grateful for the time I spent with you, I would encourage you to give back to Hope Fleet, because that's what we do.
I think Danny's got a great program, and I think you're right on target there. Thank you.
Thanks.
Carrie, I want to thank you as well. I want to thank Lynn from Grenada, who's done absolutely stellar efforts getting supplies out, helping the boats and carry through and up and down the Grenadine. All of the contacts and cruising station hosts we've had in that area have been working tirelessly. Now, we did have an answer to the surveyor, Michael Napoli, and Napoli is a surveyor that was appointed. That name strike a bell, Lynn?
It does not strike a bell with me, but I'm going to see if anybody else has mentioned him in any of the Facebook groups, which sounds funny, but that's a good way to get feedback. And I have a feeling that depending who the insurer is, that person may have been brought in specifically to deal with others, to see what other boats might be with the same insurance company.
Okay. And I got a nice thank you, Carrie, for your wisdom and kindness from Danny. Danny, thank you very much for that. We don't have any open questions. I'm leaving this up, and we did have the disclaimer. I have another disclaimer, but Carrie covered it in hers. And we're doing this as a public service, and we don't recommend anyone specifically for a service, but we present people's viewpoints that we think have real merit for the cruising community, and that's one of them. So I want to thank everyone who's attending, everyone who's watching live, and excellent presentation from Christine Roadway. Thank you. And from Michael, thank you. And again, we'll be sending this to you. And to Z, you, super helpful. Thank you so much. Again, contact Carrie. I mean, she's helped us so much over the past years, and she gives wonderful presentations, but she really does help. And I think that's what everybody who's involved in a hurricane or damage situation or an insurance situation needs, is someone who's an honest agent that can actually give them the resources they need to know what they can do. So does anyone else have any comments? Lynn?
I thank everybody. Carrie, thank you for your expertise and your knowledge. I think this has been helpful for a number of people who, let's be honest, most of us don't really understand insurance at all. So understanding what we can do makes a big difference. And I think for everybody who's participated, whether quietly or asking questions, yeah, I thank you to the SSCA for offering this.
I I think, Joan, it would be good for us to do this again in a couple weeks after claims have started to develop a little more. So I don't know if you wanna,
Yes,
put
let me-
this,
Yeah, I'll do that. We have another question.
okay?
That is from Peter Williams again. I'd be interested in getting in contact with the other Edward and Williams clients. How to go about this?
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to start networking with each other. I have put some resources together in the past, that basically just says, do your research. Just what you're gonna Google is Ion Insurance and Edward Williams Insurance, and you're gonna find hundreds of people who are in the same situation asking the same questions. I can't give my opinion on it. I am subjective. I'm in the industry. I know the history. I'm going to tell you, do your homework and Google it, start networking with each other, all the cruising groups, comment about insurance, and in particular about those two names, Ion Insurance and Edward Williams Insurance. So
Carrie, can you spell Ion?
ION.
ION. So Frank, do you have any comments for Carrie?
No, I don't. I think that the folks that are looking for other Edward Williams insurers or insurees are in good company, because that seems to be a common question I keep seeing, is where do I find others that are in the same boat, literally, as they are.
No pun intended. And if you're in that situation, I'm not in a legal position to connect you with all of them, but if you want a personal sounding board for your scenario and you want to figure out what the next steps are for your scenario, reach out to me. You have my contact information.
Carrie, I agree with your observation that having this as a repeat in about 3 weeks would probably be an excellent idea, and I'd like to invite you to do that if you're willing. I think it's important that as the claims start to get processed, people become aware of what happens after the submission.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Frank. And I'm going to recognize Hope Fleet. Danny, do you have any questions for Carrie or for the audience? Nothing heard from Danny. He's probably busy again. We had a request for mosquito netting. So he's probably working that one. I'm going to read this. The Seven Seas Cruising Association webinars. These presentations are offered as an educational and informational benefit to members of SSCA and guests. SSCA does not create or provide the content. Any opinions are not necessarily those of SSCA, its board of directors, employees, or members. Nor does SSCA endorse or promote the use of any information contained herein. Viewers should independently investigate and research any opinions and advice. So we're all trying to be careful. Dr. Fair, and we thank you very much for attending. We will be sending on. We have Ken Goodings with another question. Thank you, Ken. He's got in the questions Ion Insurance, personal auto vehicle, watercraft insurance. So he's got a link there. It's ioninsurance.com.
Yeah, make sure if you're researching them that you research them in the UK, in Spain, in the Caribbean, in Costa Rica, and in the United States. Look at their address, look at their phone number, try calling them. Look at legal activity, look at blogs related to them.
Thank you, Carrie. It's hard not to go through a disaster and then have to worry about the aftermath. And we all love our boats. But at least I'm hoping that most people will say it's hard to know when there's lack of information. Lynn, thank you so much. And Carrie, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us, Danny, and thank you, Frank. And I will say good night.
Thank you. Thanks for hosting.
Bye.
Thank you for
Bye
doing
now.
this. Thank you.
Stay safe, everybody.